So welcome to this webinar, and thank you for attending today. So we are very happy to get the interest of a large number of people, of individuals, and not only across Europe, as we can see from different countries in our continent, but also within the registration, we noticed that someone is also coming from Asia, from South America. So we as a group of projects, I must just start saying that we are grateful to the team of Horizon Booster Result, which support us in tailoring this webinar and other activities throughout the last year. The aim of this webinar is basically focusing on the topic that cities and regions across the globe are being pushed towards becoming greener and more sustainable. It's becoming clear that there is not one fix at all solution. And I'll talk the big challenges that every day we are facing, in particular those ones posed by climate change. Each city and localities has its own unique challenges, which need to be taken into a specific and particular account. The project group that actually we name it like nature-based solution for urban areas is composed from a series of different EU-funded projects like Saturn, Landscape Metropolis, and Urban Renewal. And almost all of us are addressing the topic of nature-based solutions. And in particular, if they are correctly implemented, they can offer cost-effective and locally attuned answer to many of the environmental, social, and economic challenges that every day are facing we like citizens and our living places. In this webinar, we are going to listen a series of different witnessing from members of the project group on their results that actually can be used for both local governments and civil society organizations. So the first presentation is about an orchestrated ecosystem project co-founded by AT Climate Kick that is called System and Sustainable Approach to Virtuous Interaction of Urban and Rural Landscape, namely and friendly, known like Saturn. The result of the project will be presented by Angelica Pianegonda. Angelica Pianegonda she is a PhD candidate at University of Trento, and moving from her participation in Saturn, she decided to create a startup called Ruma, of which she's the CEO. Her company recently has been awarded with the Going for Business Green Infrastructure Award by OISAL, the macro-regional strategy for the European Union for the Alpine regions. So, Angelica, the floor is yours. I remember that each of the panelists will have about 10 minutes to briefly present their evidences from the project, and then at the end of the webinar, we are going to have a question and answer session. Angelica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessandro. Okay. Is it everything okay? Do you see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that works well.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Angelica Pianegonda, and I had the opportunity to work as a research fellow in the EIT Climate Kick project Saturn. Sorry, I cannot. Okay. The starting point of the project has been the consideration that nowadays the fragmented management of the landscapes and territories leads to an incomplete climate strategies, in which cities and natural landscapes are considered separately and independently. And this leads to suboptimal use and management of the resources involved. So the idea has been to search for solutions to reconnect the landscape through the lesson of the past and having in mind the challenges of today and of the future. And the goal has been to build a framework that can help citizens to understand the landscape in which they live. Birmingham, Trentino, and Gothenburg, Birmingham in the UK, Trentino in Italy, and Gothenburg in Sweden, have been the three pilot areas in which the potential solutions have been tested. The three landscapes are very different from each other, as we can see in these photos. But this has been also a challenge, but also an opportunity to test similar solutions in very different contexts. Birmingham City Council and Birmingham City University have been the two partners from the UK that have developed the visioning exercise tool. The visioning exercise investigates future potential scenarios or visions for a given territory and encourages us to think of a future and ask ourselves what can be done to reach the desired scenarios. The idea is to guide territories in a long-term vision and to think differently about the current issues and also in the ways of doing things. In the exercise, about 1 to 15 people are involved in each workshop, and the workshops are usually of 1 hour and a half about, and are organized to help the participants to see and define a bigger picture of their territories and understand the potential working in integrated way. During the workshops, we use papers, maps, pencils, and posts to draw and picture future scenarios and actions for the given territories. The first task in the envisioning exercise is to break the ice with an individual drawing of a personal idea of a territory and the future of a territory. Then the challenge is to group people to put together the different scenarios and start to rethink the region, translating the dreams and aspiration into a map of working that can help to make real the vision that we investigated through the years and the decades. Finally, a group discussion helps to define the implication and the choices of the scenarios that have been developed before. The 3 partners from the Trentino region case study have been the Fondazione Edmund Mack, the project leader of Saturn, the University of Trento, and the Fondazione Hub Innovazione Trentino. In Trentino, we developed a tool that is called rural-urban metabolism. And the rural-urban metabolism is like a metaphor that compares the function of an organism, like humans, animals, or plants, to a territories. The rural-urban metabolism studies the flows of energy and material in the territories, with the aim to increase the sustainability of the territories itself, moving from a linear to circular metabolism. The analysis of a flow can have an impact on species and is carried out to improve the circular economy of the territory. In the rural-urban metabolism 2 study, we have studied the ecological footprint of our region, that is a measure of the resources that are consumed in the region, and then the biocapacity, that is the capacity of a territory to recover the amount of resources that are consumed. And then, by comparing the ecological footprint with a biocapacity, we can define if a territory is a biocapacity debtor or a biocapacity reserve of natural resources. Regarding the ecological footprint, so simplifying the carbon footprint, we have calculated the carbon footprint of food waste and food consumption, and also the carbon footprint of housings like sewage, water, gas, electricity, and garbage. Then we have estimated the carbon footprint of services and goods, and the carbon footprint of private transport and public transport used in our region. After, we have calculated the biocapacity of the region, starting from the land use of the territory, and by multiplying the areas by some parameters that are defined by the Global Footprint Network, we obtain the biocapacity of the region. And comparing the two, it emerged that the Trentino region is a biocapacity debtor. So, nevertheless, of a great amount of natural resources, as we can see in this next slide, we consume more resources than we produce. After the analysis of the carbon footprint and biocapacity, we studied the territory through a series of maps to understand where it is possible to optimize the use of resources to create a more sustainable territory. And at the end, we created a master plan in which we defined the areas in which we can work to create a more sustainable territory. The last case study we investigated, that was part of the Saturn project, was the city of Gothenburg, in which we had 3 project partners: the city of Gothenburg, the Isle, and the region Västra Gotland. Particularly interesting in the in the Gothenburg case study has been the development of a model farm that is a highly productive small farm unit that produce food and also develop some activity of education for the local citizens. And the main aim of the model farm is to showcase a business model that is sustainable and successful, to make this model replicable from other local small farmers. The driver of a model farm is a regenerative farming practices that are in continuous evolution from an urban and rural multifunctional landscapes. Some data about the model farm. Now we are referring to the third season of the model farm. And in the third season, we had like almost 40 different crops and more than 25,000 servings have been served in the local schools. So in the model farm, an urban farmer, Clara in this case, had produced these vegetables and sell them to the local canteens. And she also tutored like about five part-time interns. The model farm has been a very great successful story. And in Gothenburg, they developed a vision for 2025 in which the model farm is seen as an active and central hub for connecting the seasonal active satellite farms and spread this kind of activities through the municipality to recover some abandoned land, public abandoned land. The other goal is to make the model farm a delivery of vegetables and a point for the education of new urban farmers to spread the know-how, plant material, and also tools to the local satellite farms. And also the other satellite farms are linked to nearby school and also other public entities to deliver vegetable and educational learning. Another interesting tool developed in the Gothenburg case study has been the farming incubator, that is like a hub for an entrepreneurship training, especially agricultural entrepreneurship, that create a strong partnership with municipalities, so between small farms and municipality. The farming incubator acts by collecting, creating, and testing successful business models, and they organize training program through the winter season to reach other farmers and to start new farmers' opportunity in the nearby of Gothenburg cities. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Angelica. Also to be able to keep in the time. So actually it's perfectly within the 10 minutes I've been assigned to you. Now virtually we move from the Alps to the plains of Pianura Padana in North Italy. Pardon. To introduce manager, properly landscape is a pathfinder and a demonstrator project co-financed by IT Climate Geek. Lisa Sentimenti has been working in IS since 2004 as project manager. She designs and manages local, regional, national, and European projects dealing with green transition. She will tell us more about the landscape metropolis journey, which implicitly is focused on mobility. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessandro. I think Rob should launch the video first. Thanks. So good morning, everyone, by my side. Let me just share my slides presentation. Okay, you should see them fine now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, everyone, again. I think the short video we have just watched is itself rather explicative of what Landscape Metropolis territorial strategy is aiming to. Indeed, technically and strictly speaking, Landscape Metropolis has not implemented nature-based solution measures, such as, for example, the ones that Juliet, I think, will share with us, such as, for example, green roofs, rain gardens, or constructed wetlands. Nevertheless, according to the NBS definition provided by the European Commission, I think Landscape Metropolis can be considered itself as a whole, as a complex and holistic, systemic, integrated NBS. Why? Because actually Landscape Metropolis has territorial strategies that is focused on the Ferrara area in Italy, can count on a rich network of waterways, Nature 2000, UNESCO MAB sites. Landscape Metropolis, I was saying, definitely means to make a good and clever use of green and blue infrastructures, of course, offered by the landscape, and this with the aim of creating a sustainable and effective intermodal mobility network, made, of course, of waterways, cycle lanes, railway lanes, bus lanes, and walking path, as a declared alternative to the use of private high carbon vehicles for the daily mobility of citizens. And here I have used the holistic and systemic objectives, not by chance, but because the implementation of such intermodal mobility network, which is definitely deeply connected with the concerned landscape, will have several spillover effects. And this will indeed trigger, also according to the studies and the analysis we have carried out, positive and climate and air quality impacts in terms, for example, of CO2 emissions and in terms of pollution reduction, as well as also social and economic ones, through, for example, the inclusion of peri-urban fragile and inner areas, now physically connected to the city, and by creating new jobs, thanks to the revitalized fragile and inner areas, with new economies now in place. Further effects will be less public spending for car accidents, which are a real trouble now for this area, as well as for health disease due to air pollution issue. Unfortunately, today, within the allowed 10 minutes time frame, I cannot deep dive and go into details, but further benefits in terms of regeneration, deep renovation of buildings, environmental monitoring and safety, social innovation, cultural and landscape heritage are also envisaged as well, explained, I think, by the effective scheme you can see here displayed in this slide, designed by one of our Landscape Metropolis partner. Let's move to the journey of the Landscape Metropolis territorial strategy. The concept of the strategy was created in 2016 by local relevant actors and stakeholders. But it was in 2018 that we approached the EIT Climate Kick first with a Pathfinder project, whose main objective was to come up with a business plan capable to provide figures for the real implementation of the landscape metropolis network. And it was within that project that we got the first idea of the investment needed for making the network real. Also compare, as you can see here, to really green and very impactful infrastructures such as highways, along, of course, with demand analysis as well as stakeholders impact analysis. 2019 was the year of the 24-month demonstrator project, always co-financed by EIT Climate Kick. We had very active partners, as you can see from the slide, and the main objectives were to launch experiments offered to citizens to test new ways for effectively commuting on a daily basis. Second objective was to carry out deeply sustainable mobility campaigns targeted to schools and citizens. And third objective was to make available robust mobility data and decision-making tools for new territorial strategies and policies for local authorities especially. The first pilot project took place in October 2019. It connected the city center of Ferrara with a museum based in a town of the province by boats, by bikes, and by e-buses. As shown quickly by the pictures and the local newspaper, it was a great success, especially in terms of participation and related generated impacts. In the same year, mobility campaigns were also carried out through motivating apps and gamification tools created for citizens and schools, reaching also relevant results in terms of numbers and people reached schools, citizens, and in terms of impacts actually generated after those campaigns. 2000, as you well know, was the year of the pandemic, but not only a second pilot experiment was implemented, but a successful crowdfunding campaign, citizen targeted, was carried out, along with the involvement of the Po Basin Authority and other sponsors financially supporting the building of a new pier in one of the concerned waterways. Also, in this case, despite the pandemic, and I must say also, despite the bad weather forecast for those days of the experiment, there was a great participation in terms of people, passengers joining the experiment, and also in terms of, again, relevant generated impacts. In 2021, an effective awareness campaign addressed to schools was carried out in cooperation with a popular storyteller of the region, that is Luigi Dalcin. The focus of the co-creation pathway with students was on the landscape conceived as a common good, and therefore many labs were carried out. Last but not least, in November 2021, Landscape Metropolis was selected as a case study presented in the session organized by Climate Heritage Network, Culture 21, in the framework of COP26 in Glasgow. Of course, we were very proud of such moment, and we lived this event as a kind of award, since we got that the confirmation by relevant actors and experts on sustainable development policies at international level about the innovative and truly holistic nature of our territorial strategy. The Climate Kick project ended 1 year ago, and in the meantime, an association, Landscape Metropolis in Ferrara, was born with many local and regional actors, with the aim of pushing further the territorial strategy, either through an institutional dialogue with regional decision makers and relevant stakeholders, or by searching for new EU and national funding for further implementation. Of course, as our energy agency is a member of this new association, and I wish I'm closing the presentation, but I wish on this regard to take the opportunity of this webinar for sharing that we are planning for next year to apply with a new project proposal in line with Landscape Metropolis vision and approach to European calls such as LIFE or Interreg or any other suitable call. So if anyone attending today the webinar can be interested to join such approach, such vision, please do not hesitate to get in contact with me. Thank you for your attention, and sorry if I was too long, Alessandro.
Okay, thank you very much, grazie Lisa. So actually we got also an appetizer of a potential networking or maybe to go on with future exchanging activities with attendees and other projects here. So now we move from Italy to England to introduce the evidence from the project Urban Green Act, a project supported by Horizon 2020. If Saturn and Landscape Metropolis are operating on rural, peri-urban territories or urban of small dimension, now we are going on the case of Liverpool, which is entitled Large Metropolitan Area, with some traditional industrial or post-industrial future that is focusing on initiative carried out in the inner urbanized area. So the speaker is Dr. Juliet Staples, she has 35 years experiences in environmental projects, and she's currently leading and implementing nature-based solution at Liverpool City Council. Her speech is entitled Early Data Insight into Nature-Based Solution at Liverpool. Juliet, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can I just check that you can see my screen?
Yes, you can see.
Okay, right, thank you. Right, so yes, our project Urban Green Up is a Horizon 2020 funded project. And in Liverpool, we are working with the City Council where I work, the university and Mersey Forest. And the project as a whole has a number of follow global cities and affiliated cities. And the focus of our work is to trial and monitor the retrofitting of a range of different nature-based solutions in the city in Liverpool. And we're monitoring environmental, social and economic benefits. So I'm going to start with the tree sustainable urban drainage system. So this particular nature-based solution consists of 20 trees that have been planted down the central reservation of a key city highway in the main part of the city. And in the top left picture, you can see the soil-filled trench in which the trees have been planted. And the black Lego type structures are silver cells, and they're there to provide support and structure. And the trees are planted in the gaps between them. So the way this system works is the trees are planted here, this particular set, in a run of 8 separate trees. And when it rains really heavily and it's very wet, the water from the highway drains into the first of these trees. And the water then runs along this soil-filled trench before it comes out at the end. And there, as I said, there are 8 trees in that trench. What this does really is as the water flows in, the extra water during heavy rainfall, as it flows into that soil-filled trench, the soil soaks up some of the water. The trees use some of the water to grow and for transpiration. And that also slows the flow of water down through the soil. And that means that we delay the point at which that flood water potentially reaches drain. So when it also reaches the drain, there is less of it because it's been held within that soil-filled trench with the trees. And the soil has also filtered the water, so the water that comes out at the end is also much cleaner. So these trees help us to slow the flow, they reduce the final discharge to drain, and they improve the water quality. And in addition, provide added benefits such as shade, cooling, and biodiversity. Our early data from the trees is still coming together. We are at very early stages of bringing this together. But the graph in the middle there, the blue line, is the depth of water at the inflow of the first of that run of 8 trees, and those peaks correspond to rainfall peaks. And the line underneath, the browny orange line, that is the depth of water at the last tree. So you can see that the trees are effectively attenuating some of those rainfall peaks. On the right-hand side, I've got a picture of 2 test tubes, and these are water samples taken from the tree, and they are being analysed, but sadly we don't have the data just yet. The one on the left that is black and oily is from the first tree, and the one on the right that is lighter and brown is from the last tree. So we are expecting to see some significant information when the data is analysed. And we've also taken the opportunity at the bottom of the screen to retrofit a soil life sensor. It measures number of parameters of the soil, and we think that collectively this information will help us to have some really good evidence about how effective these trees can be in our cities for flooding. We've also, on the subject of flooding, because Liverpool has one of the 4th highest surface water flood risks in the UK, we've installed the first city rain garden. So this is able to take a volume each year of 420 metres cubed. It's on a small urban street, and we think under peak conditions of heavy rainfall that we can halve the flow of water to drain by channeling it through this garden. The garden is in 3 parts, mainly because there are utilities in between. We've put different soils in each of the 3 sections, and we're also testing plants that are tolerant of wet and dry conditions, plants that can actually help to clean the soil as well. And we have put a soil moisture sensor again in each of those beds. Our data is very early here. This has gone in fairly recently, but already looking at precipitation, we see different types of events. We have an intermittent event, which is sadly very typical of the British weather. So it rains, it stops, it rains again, it stops. And we find under these conditions that the rain garden is able to fully attenuate all the water. And then we have a deluge event, which is where we have very high precipitation in a short period. And here we see the rain garden working to capacity, and we're now beginning to look more closely at that element of the data. So we're able to look at things like velocity and flow to estimate the water flows through the system, and our soil moisture sensors, the graph at the bottom, shows how the different beds are performing. They all comprise of compost with horticultural grit, different compositions, but we've added some recycled aggregate into one. And all this, again, all this data together at the end will help to inform us how the rain garden is working effectively. One of the other problems we've had in the sea is blue-green algal blooms in some of our park lakes because they have very high nutrient levels. This island here is in a main park in the city. It's an old photograph actually. The vegetation now covers that island completely and is taller than a person. And what we've done here is we put this island in because we think that the planting with the roots under the island in the water will help to soak up some of the extra nutrients, and that may prevent the algal blooms. And then more recently, we've also added 3 leaky dams into a tributary to this park, which we know is high in nutrients as well. So the early data is looking fairly promising, but again, it's not quite complete. Vegetation growth has been so good that we now need to clear some and remove some so that we can have continued growth next year. In terms of the invertebrate species, we have seen an increase, but they're still characteristic of quite poor conditions, but that's probably because we don't have enough good habitat nearby. We have a little bit of water data here. After the island, we can see clear reduction in nitrates. We don't yet know about the impact of the leaky dams, but we're hoping that they will reduce phosphate and heavy metals. But the really positive thing is the 2nd year now this island has been in place. And despite really hot weather, believe it or not, in England this year, we didn't actually have an algal bloom, and that's probably the first time in quite a few years. So we think that collectively these 2 systems are beginning to work. Green walls is something that we've looked at in the city as well. This is a soil-based system in a really, really urban area. It's been very well received, and we're looking at a whole range of biodiversity, thermal, air quality, etc. We've also complemented that with another type of green wall. The top one there is a hydroponic wall with rainwater harvesting above a bus station, and below we've got a freestanding dual double aspect planted green wall where we're looking at air quality impact. But in general, looking at the early data from all the green walls, we think that we can see a local air quality improvement in the very fine particulate matters of 2.5 microns, the ones that often go into the lungs and stay in the lungs. We're seeing less any patterns really with the nitrogen dioxide, and that makes sense because we think the plants are trapping some of those fine particles. We also see good thermoregulation from the green walls, and just as an illustration at the bottom, I've put one of our thermal imaging slides on that shows you on a very, very warm day in England where the road was measuring 42 degrees C, the area adjacent to the green wall was down to 25. So thermal imaging is something that we'll be looking in more detail at. Biodiversity is also important. I don't have a lot of time to talk about this slide, but we've got the slides will go out and you can look at them. The axes aren't yet standardized. We've got plant diversity on the left, and we've got pollinator diversity in abundance on the right for 2 sites. And we're getting different results, and we think this is because to get a fuller range of biodiversity and all the pollinators visiting, we need to also have stepping stones to allow them to get to the sites. And the site at the bottom, which has got less biodiversity on the pollinators, is because basically there are no stepping stones, whereas the one at the top has kind of areas where animals and plants can move to. So we're going to be looking at that in a little bit more detail, but it's looking quite interesting. We're looking at also the walking and cycling associated with this. So although this takes into account a whole range of things like COVID behavior, new cycle routes, and other things happening in the city, we are seeing improvements in walking and cycling from data before and after the introduction of nature-based solutions. So we know that they are playing some kind of role in increasing active travel in the city. And then finally, I've got 3 slides here. We are using a program, a modeling program, in addition to other work, which is called GIVAL, or Green Infrastructure Valuation. The link is at the last slide. This allows us to quantify some of the benefits from all the work we've done. I've shown you kind of 3 projects. We've got about 40 in total. But if we look down the middle, we see carbon sequestered by trees, 155,000 kilograms of carbon, we estimate, which, having a quick look the other day, was about 34 cars, each doing about 11,500 miles per year. Likewise, there at the bottom, towards the bottom, over 6 million litres of water diverted from sewers. And again, from all our projects, that figure, but that equates to something like about 16 25-metre swimming pools. GIVAL also draws out some social aspects. It gives us an idea here potentially of up to 11 lives potentially saved per year from increased walking and cycling and reduced air pollution. And economically, it's able to put figures against things like reduced absenteeism, tourism, and full-time jobs created. And I've put the link there at the bottom, so anyone that's interested can go and have a look at that tool. And that's one of the tools we'll be using, along with obviously the raw data and other models, etc., when we present finally. So thank you for listening. If anybody wants to find out any more, then very happy for you to contact me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliet. Absolutely fine, also in keeping the time. So it was really, really helpful for the running and management of this webinar. So it was really interesting to learn some practical example of the NBS in action, of what you did in Liverpool, and also personally, I think that it was really relevant to the evaluation of the green infrastructure impact you have done. It's actually it's really important also for the strategies that has been carried out in different places of Europe. So actually, it was really interesting and promising. So now we are open the last part. In the last 20 minutes, we have a Q&A session. We are operating on a double level, so I get some questions that I will raise directly to the panelists. But as Rob has written in the chat, you can use the question and answer tool of Zoom to write any question, and then actually we are going to address the question to the panelists. I'm gonna start first with one question to Juliet. So, Juliet, according to your experience, how a city council like Liverpool could support the deployment of nature-based solutions into cities? There is a sort of a golden formula that should be followed?
I think it's always very hard to start something new, but I think if the city can lead by example, that has certainly helped us to spread the message. We've also taken the time to work with partners, developers, and community groups to gather that wider support. I think you've seen some of our early data. We hope to share that very widely at the end, both with our communities and residents and businesses, but also through our website at the end of our project, which will be in May 2023. So we're very keen to share that information. I think also there isn't really a golden formula. I think the Urban Green Up project has created a number of toolkits that can help people identify how to determine where to put a nature-based solution and what the best type might be. But I think the formula really to getting anything to actually happen, apart from having funding, is community support and community buy-in. And I think that's where it's made a difference with us in the city. I think that support has helped to push forward some of these innovative projects.
Okay, so thank you very much. So roughly the point is, as usual, when you're operating with different stakeholders in different sector, to put a serious investment in timing, in supporting them, in getting them engaged and involved. So actually, something that has been presented during her talk from Lisa Sentimenti, that actually is absolutely relevant to invest in the engagement, and also because it's important to get financial resources. I found really inspiring the idea to, during the pandemic time, to get this opportunity to get some opportunity to raise crowdfunding money for getting your initiatives. So, Lisa, according to your experience, which is the suggestions, or if there are methods or approaches that could be used to trigger the involvement not only of the interest bodies, like could be the public authorities, but also by the citizens to get to reaching the end of the project?
Thank you, Alessandro. Well, first of all, thinking about landscape metropoli and focusing on it, I must share that cultural and behavioral factors in terms of citizens' mindsets has also been identified as a challenge in achieving sustainable mobility for the concerned area and region. And given and provided such assumption, therefore, I think the so-called toolbox made in our case, for example, of system innovation and design thinking contents and tools truly increase the capacity of engaging people, being citizens or key actors you need to involve in your project or in your process. Then specifically targeting people and citizens in the case of landscape metropolis, in the sustainable mobility experiments we made, I think they were also crucial and rather effective. Because in few words, I'd say, let people make a good real life experiment and experiences, such as simply getting an e-boat where you can also load your bike on, and then the awareness around the more effective, sustainable and smarter ways for simply daily commuting come up early and immediately, I believe. Also the adoption of gamification tools such as the one we used within Landscape Metropolis, for example, Ferrara Play and Go and Kids Go Green, I think made the use of sustainable means of transport more pleasant and concretely rewarding, since those apps were used with a further benefit in order to measure the effects achieved and the impact generated by the potential and future mobility system. With the other app, which was Play and Go, citizens could track their movements by bike, on foot, by bus, by boat, by train, and increasing the so-called green leaves that were basically points, opening the door this way to real prizes, real awards, and make them getting used to such ways of commuting on a daily basis. We focused also on education and training about the landscape, consider again as a common good, targeting school through writing labs carried out in a playful way with the popular storyteller Luigi Dalcin. And this was also very much appreciated and made the students, the pupils, really engaged in the process of awareness about sustainable mobility and the importance of getting connected with the landscape also on a mobility basis. Finally, I must say that especially as you mentioned, during the pandemic year, we found the crowdfunding campaign very effective in getting citizens not only informed about the project, but also directly supporting and showing they were keen on the places they live in. And for these reasons, they wanted and they showed to be eager to take part actively through their money to the building of a new pier for the concerned waterway. And the pier, I think, became this way a kind of symbol, not only in terms of physical, let's say, green infrastructure, but also from a social point of view of a new kind of merging process of a revitalized interconnection between the peri-urban areas and the city center. In conclusion and in short, I think that in order to engage people, you really need to pick the best from your available toolbox. Sometimes tools and measures to be applied and put in place are pretty ordinary, but sometimes you really need also to add further ingredients, such as a bit of creativity and out of the box thinking to find them out, and in order to be really effective. That's all.
Thank you, Lisa. So actually, so the drivers on the cultural and behavioral aspects actually it could be absolutely relevant. As we can see also, is not only by the having something, I mean, in concrete, like having this infrastructure NBS that has been reported, it could be attractive to let people more engaged in moving, get sustainable mobility, but also to really get this kind of idea of engagement also through different activities. So, but there could be also some points that actually could be also coming aside from the actions that we were going. So, in particular, in the question and answer tools of Zoom, we have a couple of questions that should be addressed directly to Juliet. In particular, we can say maybe the by-side effect on green infrastructure, because, for example, an NBS. So I can read the question from Kate Morley. So have there been any green gentrification effects in the study areas which have had any negative effects on more marginalized communities? So I guess that would be, in particular, knowing the experience of Saturn and landscape metropolis, something that actually could be more relevant to Judith. So actually, I guess that if Judith can give you a quick answer to this question, then we are going to the next one.
Hello, thank you for the question. We haven't got all our social and economic data through yet, but basically the interventions in Liverpool are very small and very local. So the opportunity for that kind of gentrification is probably quite low. We've not done things on a very large scale that have affected large areas. The idea is to tackle local problems in a local and direct way. I would be surprised if when we get our data back, we see anything particular. I think the COVID, the pandemic, the drop in house prices, all these sorts of indicators that we're looking at, I think because of other world events, we're probably unlikely to pick up any kind of increases in those kinds of indicators. But yeah, we're not fully through the data at the moment.
Thank you, Judith. There is a question from Juan Juano about what the commitment those urban green up expect from cities authorities that have chosen to be part of the network of cities. This question actually is directly addressed to green up, but I guess that the point how the cities authorities, the public authorities could be involved is common for all the others. But actually, maybe Juliet, you can share your direct experience with the city of Liverpool.
I couldn't quite hear that. Was it about how the public and was it tourists have been involved? Was that the question? I couldn't hear.
So what are the commitments that the city authorities that decide to be part of the network should be taken in the medium and long term?
Okay, I think in understanding the question, I think you're asking about the other cities. So we've got some partner cities who are follower cities who are looking to replicate some of the work we've done and to learn from the mistakes. We've got things wrong. That's all part of innovation and challenge. And then we have a number of affiliated cities who have access, I understand it, to our website and to some of the deliverables, and are invited to lots of the information sharing webinars as well. And then, of course, at the top, Liverpool is one of 3 front-runner cities on this project. So we have Valladolid in Spain and Izmir in Turkey, both of whom are implementing very similar types of nature-based solutions, but on different levels. So, for example, in Izmir, the question about gentrification, Izmir have done an amazing project on the Perigou stream where they have put in cycleways, walkways, pollinators, planting thousands and thousands of trees, and really turned over and improved a massive area. So it may well be that they would pick up some kind of gentrification. But in Liverpool, as I said, it's a different approach. It's small interventions at local locations. And Spain has done a little bit of both. It has some larger projects and some smaller ones. So yeah, there are kind of 3 areas of cities joining us: the partner cities, the follower cities who are copying and replicating, and then the affiliated cities who have joined and signed up to learning from Urban Green Up.
Thank you, Juliet. So in fact, the point of collaboration and cooperation absolutely are crucial in deploying real results from the activities we are carried out, moving from the research and innovation center. So also these 2 words are crucial and pivotal also for the Saturn project that, as reported, the collaboration from different sectors, academia, public authorities, and NGOs towards a unique goal. But the point is, as maybe has been shortly presented during the presentation by Angelica, if there is the space for creating business opportunities, either in strict relation to the nature-based solution or blue and green infrastructures. So Angelica, can you tell us something from your direct experience of what you learned from working within Saturn?
Yes, for sure. I think that exist some opportunities, some business opportunities, and also connection between public and private bodies. Because as we saw in the Gothenburg case study, the municipality has been and is a key player in the agro-ecosystem business network of the region. Because in the last years, the municipality give the opportunity to some local citizens to rent some small piece of land, and also to attend some courses to learn how to manage a farmer and how to manage a business. So now we have a lot of new farms that are producing vegetables that are sold in Gothenburg with, for example, the Rico project, but also with direct sell in groceries and, for example, CSA organization. And I think that also Saturn, and in particular Gothenburg, has been an opportunity to spread this good practice in other regions. For example, here in Trentino, because a little local municipality, the municipality of Arco, here close to Trento, started a new project inspired by the Gothenburg case study. And currently, about 50 young citizens are participating and attending the project that is called Giovani Coltiviamo il Futuro. And they are attending some lessons to learn the basis of the agroforestry practices. And in the next year, is planned that the municipality of Arco will give them some small areas, one or more than one small abandoned public areas, to start a new business opportunity, and also to start a new farms inside the territory of the municipality of Arco. And one of the main characteristics that will have this farm is that it will have to be very, very sustainable. So we are growing a new kind of green network of small sustainable agricultural farms in Trentino that can help to improve the green infrastructure of the region.
Yeah, but what I say, not only on the productive side, but also on the service side, because also you are the CEO of a startup that actually is providing services, and you are one of the results from the project Saturn, but you are not unique, because as some of us work in the IT climate community, we have seen the opportunity to have a lot, maybe not a lot, but actually a good number of new companies that are being created. So actually, maybe with some challenges that are rising. So maybe if you want just to have in 1 minute say something about Ruma, would be really appreciated. Maybe also for that and this for inspiration.
Yes, Ruma born as you say with a Saturn project, because at the end of the Saturn project we attended a program to transform research into businesses, and we started our path. And then we also have the opportunity to be part of a Green Infrastructure Goes Business Award, that is an initiative from the EU EUSAL. And now we are working to create a platform, an online platform that will provide some services to monitor and evaluate the regenerative project of the territory, ecological regenerative project of the territory. So through satellite images and also with the use of sensors, we will be able to monitor, for example, a reforestation project to understand the carbon that is stored inside of the plants, and also the role that this kind of project have inside the territory to improve the biodiversity and also some other ecosystem services.
Thank you very much, Angelica. Just to give us a very short, less than one pitch elevator presentation of Ruma. So we also say, I can also say that also part of your history in creating this startup is also connected with the support of Horizon Group Busters, on which we have been supported within Saturn in 2020-21 to support the creation and evaluation of these business opportunities. It was one of the opportunities that actually has been granted through the services, given to most of the European projects by the Commission. So actually, as we started saying thanks to Horizon Root Booster activities, we say also again yes to them at the end of this webinar. I'm also grateful to Juliet from reporting us from the case of Liverpool, Lisa from Metropoli, Pallato Landscape Metropolis, and Angelica from Saturn for giving this short presentation. And also before to go, as Rob reminded me, because actually we are more or less in the eve of the Christmas time, I will just remind you that for all the attendees of the today webinar, or those one registered, you will receive a gift from us that actually will be reporting some of the evidences from our project and maybe some to create new opportunities for tackling our next to be future challenges. So thank you very much from our side and from us with panelists, and enjoy your ending of the working season this year, and enjoy your Christmas time in front of you. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.